My name's Parisa Rafat. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm a Master's of Architecture student. I'm a program coordinator at MENA Film Festival, and I'm an artist and a community organizer. I think as a kid, I asked for everything that I am now. There was like something deep inside you as a child that knows exactly who you are. There's something so pure within a child that I don't know if maybe like I would or wouldn't believe it, because if that's what I was asking for, or that's what I was wishing for, literally praying for, right? It means that a part of you knows that that's who you were meant to be or who you wanted to become, that you are capable of being that person. I grew up going to Islamic school, you know, I grew up with a lot of like shame and like resentment and like, you know, I had to unlearn all of that, and you know, not having really access to representation of queer Swana folks, you know, as I was growing up, and it's still quite, you know, queer Swana, queer Muslim, trans Muslim, like those identities are still very, very like under the wraps. And I was really blessed, to be honest, to have such loving and supportive like matriarch that raised me. I wasn't raised by my parents. I was raised by my aunt, my grandma, and they were very religious. But I think because I was always me, I was trans before I was queer, right? Like they saw me growing up. They saw me, you know, struggle with my gender and like all of these things. So I think it was interestingly not super, I came out as queer first in like 2019, which is not that long ago. It was easier for them to accept my queerness than it was for them to accept my transness, because my transness meant taking hormones, it meant chopping off my tits, it meant, you know, like growing facial hair, and they're like, what? So, I don't know, when you're trying to connect with someone, usually the points of connection are either shared experiences or shared values. And when you're not sharing experiences with someone and you're not sharing values with them, you have such a hard time finding a point of connection. And I think culturally, you know, because our communities, our motherlands in Southwest Asia, North Africa region is so troubled by, you know, Western intervention, and our cultures and our communities are so kind of like, they reject Westernization so hard because they're just like, oh, that's gross, or it's blasphemous, or it's, you know, fucking whiteness, like whatever. Like there's this rejection towards it, and queerness is kind of, and transness is kind of, gender nonconformity is kind of always like embedded within Westernization. And it's so hard for you to show them like those aspects of our culture that was there before colonialization and imperialization and like Western intervention and everything. But it was so far, and our cultures are so ancient. Some of the most ancient like records of like civilization and culture and history, and like it's so far away and abstract that it's hard for them to relate to that or like accept that even. It's not a part of their lived and you're so diasporic and they're so like from the motherland, it doesn't become a point of connection. And it was interesting for me, where I feel like I was super lucky, was that my grandmother, she was a white witch, right? And so what white witches are, it's like, you know, in her lens, it was quite like Islamic, but it was also very like indigenous to the land. So it was a lot of like herbal medicines and like that kind of stuff, but it was also like kind of prayer stuff. But what she did to my mother when I was in the womb was this thing where you write like a verse of the Quran in white ink, and it has to be this certain time of the moon and I don't know, all that stuff, for me to turn out a boy, because my father wanted a son. And when they got the ultrasound and everything, like I was supposed to be a boy. And then when I was born a girl, it was like a lot of drama in my family, apparently. But the point of connection for me with my grandma was that moment. Was me, it wasn't like this like 10-hour conversation of me trying to explain what non-binary is or what transness is. I was just like, you remember that thing that you did? What if it kind of worked? You know, like, what if I kind of like halfway got there? And she was like, I knew it. She's like, I fucked you up. And I was like, no, it was magic, trans magic. You know what I mean? But it was so easy for her to understand with that like one thing. And it felt like, this thing that was supposed to collapse the whole world over my head, this thing that was like super impossible. This conversation was 2 minutes long, and it was so quick and easy for her to accept it because there was that point of connection. I would say it's really cool seeing, the queer and trans community show up for the Palestine movement. I think it's really hard. It's a hard fight, obviously, for a lot of reasons, but I think that what we're seeing kind of now, like post Black Lives Matter movement, I would say, is that a lot of capitalistic kind of institutions and capitalistic structures are always looking towards commodifying, right? Like finding that like diversity or that like inclusion kind of like entry points into having like the optics of being progressive and whatnot. And a lot of the times I would say like queering, pinkwashing is used, in a lot of those moments. And I want the queer community and for queer people to understand that power that we have now. Yes, like the tables have turned in that way of like, we were so unwelcomed before and now they cannot gobble us up enough, and it's for us to not lose our dignity and for us to not lose our, and understanding that like, yeah, it's a trend and trends are scary because when they pick you up that fast, they'll drop you just as fast too, right? And it's like understanding that we are a part of those like solidarity kind of what's it called? Like the picket line, right? Like we have to understand that that's where we actually are. And to not forget like when we stand up for causes like this, it means something because they want to use us anyway. So if we institutionalize ourselves, if we create kind of like these societies or like, when we understand how vast we are as a community, we can understand our economic power, right? And it's like, if we can link arms and not stand for some BS, right? That they can't use us for pinkwashing the dehumanization of people, right? Because yeah, like queer Swana people, yes, we're in the shadows, yes, the visibility isn't always there, but we out here, like, they exist, so stand up for what's right because that's what got us here in the first place, and don't forget it.